Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Adriana Linares. I'm the host of LawTech Connect, and I have a awesome guest today, Honorable-elect Barbara Leach. How do you like that, Babs?
One day it will seem right and normal to me, but not yet.
So I've invited Barbara on to talk about two things. One is her journey to becoming a judge. She was a solo practitioner, which I think in and of itself is just an amazing feat, becoming a judge. And then two, what it's been like closing down her practice. So I'm going to start with this. Barbara, they say that the two most stressful days of your life are getting married and buying your first house. But I have a feeling you will add to your third the day that you were waiting to find out if at the last minute you were going to be, there was going to be a contested election. So what was, give us a little background of what I'm talking about and what that day must have been like.
So I practice in Florida, and in Florida, you become a judge one of two ways. You either get elected or you get appointed by the governor when there's a vacancy. I ran for election, and in Florida, elections happen during our primary in August for judicial candidates. If there's more than two candidates, then there's a runoff in the general election in November. So the ballot, though, is set either the end of April or beginning of May, depending upon when the election falls in August. And this year, 2020, geez.
Why do you even have to think about it?
Right, 2020, our deadline for becoming a judicial candidate, qualifying to become a judicial candidate, was April 24th. So, and at noon. So to your point, we would know on April 24th as to whether I had opposition or not, because I, leading up to, and spoiler alert, as of April 24th, had no opponent, but leading up to it, I was in an open seat and had been campaigning. At that point, I put in for this open seat in August of 2019. And so I had been campaigning for 8 months, waiting for someone to get into my race, because I knew it would happen. I knew I would win, not because I'm awesome, but because of the awesome support. Oh, thank you. The awesome supporters I have. So I knew I would win, but I never for a moment thought I wouldn't have opposition.
And I think you just have to think strategically like that. You definitely don't want to get complacent. So tell us too a little bit about just the whole process of campaigning. Like you're basically running a business for the months and months that it takes to get to the finish line. You had a campaign manager, you had to put together events, you had newsletters, you had emails. I built your website for you. You took donations. I mean, it's literally a business.
Yeah.
Let's not call it that because we don't want to get you in trouble, but it's right. Like running a business.
And to be clear, for those of you who are on the judicial, the JQC, the people get judges in trouble, I never took donations. My campaign committee of interested people, they took the donations. But to your point, Adriana, I remember at one point in December, I had 6 different outfit changes in one day, because of the different kinds of events I was going to. Now, friends of mine say my car looks like a hobo car because there's always crap in it anyway. But this was like legit. I had a eBay store in my car of clothing options, because I was like, oh, I got to go to court, and then I got to meet with a client, and then I got to go to this lunch, and then, oh, it's a holiday party, and then it's a more formal holiday party. It was a little crazy, but it was also kind of fun.
Yeah. I'm sure.
You know,
what made you decide to go through all that after being a solo practitioner and doing what I think, you know, one of the things I love about you and the types of guests that I love having as, you know, guests on LawTech Connect or on my podcast, New Solo, I like talking to lawyers who love practicing law. And you loved it. You're such a good lawyer. So what made you want to switch your career path?
Well, it took years for this to coalesce, but I attribute it to the fact that to the extent to which I am a good lawyer, and thank you for saying that, and thankfully I have clients and opposing counsels who also believe that, I think I'm a good lawyer because I'm allowed to help people.
Yeah.
Solve problems, get them from a rough point of their life to a marginally better point of their life, but with an upward trajectory beyond that. For those of you who don't know, I practice predominantly family and marital law. So, I'm dealing with some really stressed out people, not to be a little bit anyway, to undersell that point.
Yeah.
But what I learned was, even if I work with 100 clients a year, at the end of the day, I'm serving 100 families. And in the Ninth Circuit, Orange and Osceola County of Florida, family law judges have about 3,000 to 4,000 cases on their docket.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's amazing the workload that they carry. But if you think about the number of lives they can impact, and to be clear, I'm not saying help people, because as a judge, I don't view my role as to help people and to solve their problems. My role is to get them through the court system and to get them resolution so that they know what the future is for them and they can move forward and change their lives accordingly. But I still view that as help, because there's nothing worse to me than the uncertainty.
Yeah.
When things are pending. So I looked at becoming a judge as an opportunity to expand my ability to serve people.
When you were on the other side of the bench all these years, what types of, you must have presented or been in front of tons of judges, and tell me, what sorts of things did you look at even before you decided to become a judge and say to yourself, if I'm ever a judge, I'm never going to do that or act like that? And then at the same time, tell me about a moment, give me one or two each, a moment where you were like, wow, that judge really did something amazing, or just, some sort of behavior, or maybe just regularly behaved in a way that you said, if I ever become a judge, I'm going to model after some of that.
Interestingly, both categories or both examples revolve around respect, meaning one of the things that I abhor is tardiness. And one of the things that's really frustrating as a lawyer appearing in front of a judge is seeing opposing counsel not respect the time frame allowed for a hearing or a trial. And similarly, it's also really frustrating when you're waiting for a hearing for a judge that's late, or because a hearing went over before, and I'm sitting there and I do billable hourly work, and I see, the clock whizzing. This is costing my client to sit there and wait. And I find, yes, emergencies come up. I get that, knock on wood. But at the same time, repeated tardiness to me is a lack of respect.
You will never be tardy to your hearings, will you?
Well, I hope. Well, notice how I prefaced it with there are emergencies upon occasion. Yes. But that ultimately is the goal.
Give yourself a bye.
And then to keep the litigants, keep the train running on time. That's the goal. And so it's really frustrating to see when that doesn't happen. But at the same time, by the same token, one of the things that I've really admired as far as from the respect perspective are the judges who really listen to the client. And even if, because I've been the client's lawyer, ostensibly I have vested interest, and even sometimes I've been frustrated by hearing my client say the same thing in a courtroom setting, or they're saying something that's not relevant or germane to what we're asking the court to rule on. And I think the best judges allow the litigants to be heard. And even when I've had a judge hand down a ruling that was not favorable to my client, the best judges create an environment where when the litigant leaves, the litigant says, well, but I think I was heard.
I felt I was heard. Right. And
So
I feel like that's something I hear all the time, that a lot of times they just want their time in court. They want to be heard, and they don't want it to feel like it's just going in one ear and out the other. Well, I think those are both great qualities that I know you already have naturally. Is you're quite timely. I don't think I've ever known you to send a text saying you were running late, unlike another person we know and love. And
she's
and I
watching.
know, yeah, she probably is. And you know who you are, Lizzie. And then, being able to listen to people, but that's something that you've always been very good at, which is what makes you such a good friend and a good lawyer, and I know will make you a really amazing judge. When people ask you, hey, I've been thinking about, this is something I've always wanted, I want to be a judge, or I became a lawyer in order to become a judge, what are the things you would tell them to expect during the process that you were completely surprised about, as well as, a tip or two about planning your career in a way where maybe that makes sense, which I don't even know if there are things that you can do years ahead of being able to run or getting on an appointment list.
Absolutely. To start with the second question, and I'll also forget the first thing you asked, by the way. So we'll have to circle back to that.
Basically the same thing.
Squirrel. But I think, one, it's fairly uncommon in this day and age in the Ninth Circuit of Florida for someone to be elected without opposition.
Right. We have a lot of people in Florida, a lot of lawyers,
A
like
lot of lawyers.
a lot.
A lot of lawyers, a lot of whom want to become judges. I think one of the reasons that I was fortunate enough to not draw opposition is because I had really sunk my roots into the community, both legal
Yes.
and otherwise, although mostly legal. So a lot of lawyers knew who I was, and when it came time to establish a committee and have the committee then have people host events, or hey Barb, you should come meet these people, or hey Barb, you should set up a table at this event in Windermere. I had such a groundswell of support of friends of mine because I had been so involved and I had given back to the legal community so much before I put in. That's not to say you can't wake up a Tuesday morning in
On April 24th.
yeah, and well, you can't do it that late because you gotta fix some paperwork. But essentially, it's not. I'm not trying to dissuade people from throwing in at the last minute, as it were. But it was easier for me to get the job done with the support of the legal community because I was well established, having been involved in multiple organizations and having been president of the Central Florida Association for Women Lawyers. I live my life by the philosophy that the way to succeed is to help others. And if you help them succeed, and therefore you will succeed. And so for years, I have been a friend and a volunteer and a cheerleader with not to seek any kind of return on my part. But when it came time to run, there was a wave of people who acknowledged, hey, Barb, you've been such a great friend to me. What can I do to help you? And to go back to your first question, I think this is what it was about what was surprising or
Yeah.
was that. And I've had friends who've run for judge before and they said, hey, I became friends with this person on the campaign trail. I didn't even know them prior to running, and now we're like friends for life. That happened to me too, and it wasn't even to the point of where we were out in August sweating, waving signs. So I think it was really surprising to me by all the cool people who came into my life who had no connection to me but through the campaign. So that was kind of cool and unexpected.
So I want to reiterate something that I just say all the time, especially to young lawyers or new lawyers, that getting involved in your local community or your broader community, and especially legal, volunteering, networking, it's just everything. Every successful lawyer I talk to, especially the happy ones, it's networking. It's the secret to everything. People want to spend money on advertising and Google ads and text message campaigns, but it really, it's being known in the community, being liked. So back to your whole thing about being respectful, you're always respectful and kind and helpful. And I just think that that's the key to everything. Just over and over again, even I keep hearing the same message, and I'm pretty stubborn about that very message myself. And it's what I hear all the time. Well, Barbara, as someone who's been your friend and watched you go through this, it makes me want to cry. It really does. I know I might actually cry a little. I'm so proud of you, and it's just such Henry thinks you're a superhero. So my boyfriend is an attorney as well. He's licensed in 4 states, loves law. But when Barbara was going through this and you made it, he's like, wow, I've never known someone to go through this and make it. She's like a superhero. So congratulations, Babs.
Thanks.
You've gone through, okay, so you went through the 3rd most stressful thing in your entire life, which was going through this process, and you've got a 7-year sit on the bench? 6 years. Whew. Then maybe we start again. But you've also been pretty busy having to close down your practice, and you had a very busy practice. So tell us a little bit about what that is like.
Yeah. So again, going back to being blessed by fantastic friends, a girlfriend of mine, Conti Moore of Conti Moore Law, we had shared office space together for 3.5 years, and we're very, very best friends. And
you were in her wedding, which was held here in the great city of New Orleans.
Yes, we had a second line. Get married in New Orleans. Have a second line if any of y'all are wondering where to get married. It's the best. But so in November of 2019, I decided to close down Barbara Leach Law as we call it ourselves, and go be of counsel to Conti. And I transitioned.
You cleaned up their messes.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Let me just make that clear. Barbara's law firm was Barbara Leach Law, condensed to Bleach Law, and her tagline was, "We clean up your messes." It's freaking brilliant. So good.
You gotta have fun. You really
have to have fun. You have to have fun. Okay, so November you decided to close down Bleach Law
and go be of counsel to Conti, because then that allowed me to not incur additional administrative costs, and meaning, i.e., the cost of having an office and a receptionist and the internet and all that,
because running for judge is expensive.
Yes.
It's just expensive. So in order to minimize those costs and put more energy and money toward your campaign and this goal, decided to get rid of that overhead.
Yeah. And I had also, at the beginning of 2019, in anticipation of running, I limited my practice area exclusively to family law, because I had been a civil lawyer. My background was in commercial litigation, and I had also been a consumer bankruptcy attorney and still done some civil stuff. But 2019 kicked everybody else to the curb, family law exclusively,
focused.
So that it would streamline the process when I started running in August. Because to your point, it's almost, it will take as much time as you allow it / afford it being the running. And I wanted to, just make it, as our friend Ernie Svensson talks about, a frictionless, and Jack Newton, frictionless experience. See, guys, I listen to what you say.
You do.
And I don't always employ it, but some things. So when I went to go work with Conti, it made life easier. And then when I ran in April and got elected without opposition, a lawyer friend of mine who'd gone through the same process said, "Listen, now, Barb, I know you're probably going to work as much as possible up until the end of the year so you can make as much money, bank as much money as possible." Sure.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. No. He does not know me, because I wanted to be done as soon as I could, because I wanted to have some time to breathe, recover, not have to look at my email, quite frankly, and D, start to transition my mindset and my experiences from that of an advocate to that of a judge. So I had in my mind that I wanted to close up by the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I started telling the world. But I knew that it would be the end of September. And then when I got into the weeds on it, I was like, holy crap, it might actually be October, because everything took so much longer than I thought it would. So,
and by everything, what do you mean? Transitioning clients? What did you do with your clients? And you also ran, I want to make sure and say this, a very tech savvy law firm. You were mobile, you were secure, you had lightweight technology, you used Clio. And I mean, you respect how technology can help make a law firm more efficient. So did that help in transitioning clients? And what did you do with all that stuff?
The technology didn't help in the transitioning the clients so much. It helped in that until the end of June, it was me and my associate attorney, and then she left to get a great opportunity working for immigration in California. And so for July, August, September, actually the middle of June, it was just me. So the technology really buoyed me. I don't know how to say that. Lifted me up throughout the process, particularly since is a little bit of a diversion. Jessica and I went home from Conti's office on Friday, March 13th, and we've been working from home, or we have been working from home since. Mm-hmm. So the pivot to working from home that I thought was that COVID required, I didn't want to be out and about if I didn't have to be out and about. It was seamless.
Yeah.
It was perfectly seamless, because to your point, I had set up, I'd embraced technology so much. Now, and the need as part of the transitioning wasn't that necessary in terms of, I didn't need the technology to transition clients, because I had really, starting in probably, well, ever since August of 2019, when I officially became a candidate, any existing client or potential client who walked into my office for a consultation, real or virtual office, mm-hmm. I was completely candid with them and said, hey, listen, I'm running for judge, so I'm not going to be your lawyer in this case beyond a certain point, either a certain point in time or a certain point in your case. And the advice that I would give to people who were considering transitioning, either because they were running for office or got appointed, although if you're appointed, you have much less time, or just leaving the practice of law or going to another firm, A, start soon, B, over communicate. Because my clients, like I said, not only did I start telling them from day one, actually day -1, i.e. before they even hired me, but I also put it in my fee agreements, and maybe it was a CYA, but I said, happy to be your lawyer. I expect that I can represent you through mediation or through the end of September, depending upon which comes first. And at that point, we're going to transition you either to another lawyer here within the firm, or to you can go somewhere else. Like I really made it clear. And one of the frustrations about that, though, that I didn't realize was how much time that actually took. So wow. When it came to the point of where, and I'm looking at cases, and I have a Post-it with how many cases are open, and every time I can scratch through and write a lower number, because I mean, I was on the prize to get these cases done so I could come to New Orleans and hang out with my friends Adriana and Henry. I digress. But I had to look at my case list every day and relentlessly try and move something forward. And then, but then so I'm like moving the cases forward, but I'm an overshare. Obviously, that's where but I would have a call set up with a client and say, hey, the time has come. You can either find another lawyer, or Conti or whomever, and like, well, okay, well, I'm going to transition to Conti, and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to set up a call or a video chat with you.
Here we
and
go. The handoff.
Yes, and then afterwards I'd send an email, and then I'd follow up. Are you okay? Do you have any questions? What, like, but all of that from a billable hour perspective, I probably spent an hour and a half total with each client just to transition. Obviously,
Wow.
I didn't charge them for that, but
Right.
to me, it was really important that people felt not dropped.
Abandoned. Yeah.
Oh, that's a much better word. Yeah, not
Right.
abandoned is much better than dropped. So yeah, so but that
Did anyone
takes time.
rush their case through? Like, did that create any sort of impetus for people to hurry up? Because as a lot of my family law lawyers have said, the process often takes longer because the client, and then of course opposing counsel and client, are just slow about stuff. Was anybody like, oh, it's a great time to hurry? Let's get this
No,
over
not
with.
on my side.
No.
Because no, my clients, obviously I sound biased, but my side is never the slow side in a litigation.
Never late.
Yeah, like I started my practice at a big firm, and you were on call essentially 24 hours
Yeah.
a day. So part of that never left my mentality. And this is an unhealthy approach to the practice of law, but it also got a lot of people to fire their lawyers and hire me. My philosophy was, if Adriana, you're my client, if you call or email me and say, hey, Barb, where are we on this? Then I think that's a failure.
Uh-huh. Oh,
That's
interesting. Right.
I failed you.
Failure to communicate.
You should be in the loop. So like I said, and it's that attitude that always got us, in a perfect world, being responsive to the other side and being responsive to our client. And yeah, if a client needs time to think about something because it's a weighty decision that I don't want them to make emotionally, sure, you take as long as you need, but they're not loiterers. Right. For the most part. We're moving the ball down the field
for them.
Yeah.
Well, you started out at a big firm, which I wanted to make sure and say that your career path has taken you across the legal gamut pretty much from law school. And this was a second career for you, right? You became a lawyer a little later than most lawyers do, which I also think is inspirational. And I want people to know that, you don't have to come out of college and go to law school. You lived a full life doing other things, became a lawyer, started at a big firm, decided that maybe big firm life wasn't all it was cut out to be, and started a solo practice. You also had a great office sharing setup with Conti, which, if you're interested in, I don't know if you know this, Barbara, but I've got 2 law schools. The professors they use the podcast. So I have a podcast on, Myth the Orchids. So I have a podcast, and there's a great episode about Barbara and Conti sharing their office space, if you're interested. And that is the one class, the one session, the podcast that both of these professors have told me they make their classes listen to, because it's about in their law practice management sessions. So anyway, that's a great podcast. And then there's a follow-up podcast to that when you all decided to go your separate ways, and how funny that you came back together in order to close down your practice and start this new journey. So Barbara, I want to thank you so much for taking time to join us. And I hope you come back in a few months. Maybe we can do an occasional check-in and see how life from the bench is going for you.
Yeah, I would love that.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. Thanks everyone for joining us on Litera TV and LawTech Connect. Hope to see you next Monday.